To politics tonight, where we dig beyond the headlines. And I've been speaking with Cletus Orban, a chieftain of the All Progressives Congress. And tonight we're discussing the sack of Kano State Governor by the tribunal and other national issues. Mr. Cletus, let's get into some of the national issues. President Tinubu is in the United States for the United Nations General Assembly. How will you describe his outing?
Fantastic. When I listened to his address to the United Nations General Assembly, it was nostalgic, motivating, captivating, patriotic, so full of zeal for his country and the continent. And he spoke not just for Nigeria, but for the African continent and the black race. And I was so proud of him. I can tell you this over and over. I would like to listen to that speech, especially the concluding part of it, in which he asserted vehemently, proudly, that Nigeria wants to be partners, not beggars. Nigeria would like to give and not to receive. Nigeria would like to work with and not to work under. That is just to paraphrase most of what he said. And the concluding part of that speech, you can go back and recite it and put it on our national plaque and say it again and again to children yet unborn, generations unborn, that indeed we have got a precedent by that common speech. So for me, and look at the side meetings and the quality of people he is talking to. And when I see people just talking for talking's sake, just because they more criticize, just to be noticed, those attention-getting techniques must have to give way. I expect that we should be having more of solutions about how to bring our beleaguered nation, battered by external and internal forces from the areas of security to economy. We need to work on that. And that is what the president has said. He spoke extensively on security, both in the sub-region and on the continent. He spoke about the economy, both in the country and the economy. And in terms of collaboration, he has invited investors to come into the country and to create and promise to create an enabling environment. And you can see what he has said. When he took the challenge, was it last week, in one of his speeches, and said no more government borrowing. I was very happy about that. And how do you now fill the gap of the loans? He is working on that assiduously with one of the best teams that he could ever assemble. And I can tell you that this outing in the United Nations General Assembly is one of the best that we have ever had in recent times. And the results will soon start tumbling in. From India to the United States, I think President Tinubu has indeed taken off well within a space, the first quarter of his own regime and his own administration. Hunger is an eye-opener. It is an epiphany, a discovery of our country and a rediscovery of our nation's pride and patriotism.
All right. So talking about results, while addressing the world leaders, the president charged them on protection of democracy in Africa. Do you see the West taking that challenge? Yes.
I must tell you, within the praxis, within the matrix of international politics and diplomacy, students of our political economy will tell you that most of what you see politically playing out especially on the African continent, is a matter of economics parading as political instability. That is to say, the economic interest of the Western world is what is at the heart of instability. Whether it is from Joseph Kasavubu to Patrice Lumumba, whether it is from Leopold Senghor to Amadou Ahidjo in Cameroon, whether it is from Olympio or down to even Master Sergeant Samuel Doe or Sankara, whether it is recently as Muammar Gaddafi, you are going, of course, you will remember that in Zimbabwe, there was so much resistance. And in South Africa, there is stability because of the manner in which Mandela brought it. It has all been more about economics than politics of internal wranglings, internal cohesion or tribal or ethnic frictions. That is not the issue. It is about the economy, because underneath the African soil is so much solid mineral deposits, so much wealth, that the world needs Africa, from the dark continent to the continent of light. Even when in Egypt, civilization began, with the oldest library still sitting in Alexandria, we are still being told that civilization began from the West. Even when our own Lord Jesus Christ had to run to Egypt for safety, we still make Africa look as if it is still the heartland of the dark continent. Africa has come of age. And I must tell you this, when the President Tinubu comes out to talk about the world must protect democracy, it is not about coming to help us. Don't forget that in all the world wars, First, Second World War, whether it is Syria, whether it is Somalia, whether it is Liberia, whether it is Sierra Leone, the world comes there using Nigerian soldiers, using Nigerian armed forces. Whether it was in the Congo in the 60s, it is Nigerian armed forces that go there. First World War in Burma, it was Nigerian soldiers that go there to go and help them on the land. Remember the song at the time about the Germans, falling Germany, British in the air, America in the sea, Africa keeping the land, Germany falling to rise no more. That was the song at the time. So we have at all times been the contributors to world development from ages. So it is very difficult for me to understand why we are thinking that it is from external forces. What he is saying invariably is a metaphor. It is a cry to say, leave us alone to stabilize. Your interest, your economic interest in Africa is causing us instability. So if he shields it by way of saying protect democracy, it's not to give us arms. The arms that are being used to unseat governments here are not produced in any African country. They are not. They are imported. So who is bringing them? Whether it is drones, whether it is fighter jets, alpha jets, whatever form of arm you are getting is supplied from outside. So leave Africa alone to bring itself. The most peaceful continent in the world is the African continent. The most peaceful people on earth are the Africans. And that's why even when we are being ranked as the poorest country, we are being told that Nigeria has the happiest number of people. Why are we not happy?
All right.
Why are we happy?
Mr. Cletus,
we're peaceful people.
Just like you mentioned, the president wants global leaders to mount crackdown on terror financing and arms smuggling. But how feasible is this?
It is very feasible if they are committed, if they are dedicated, if they are sincere and honest about it. Look at the drama playing out on the African continent. You are telling us that we are looters. You are telling Nigerians that they are the most corrupt. Where do corrupt Nigerians keep their money? They keep it in the countries that have the least corruption. That is to say, Switzerland. You go to a Swiss bank and find Nigerian currency, Nigerian wealth kept there, and turn around and tell us that that is the country that is least corrupt. A receiver of stolen goods is worse than the thief. Because if a man doesn't know where to go and sell his stolen goods, he won't steal because he has no store for them. So those who are receiving African wealth, we are just receiving Abacha loot. If there was no place to keep it, would it have been buried on the streets of Kanu? Would it have been buried in some farms in Kanu? So we are saying to them that, look, the world has to be committed, dedicated, and sincere and honest to the Africans. And led by President Tinubu, I am so confident that they will have to listen because we do not need any external force to enforce African unity. It is rather from outside to leave out the outsiders, the intruders, the invaders, to leave Africa alone to itself. When they start thinking that Africans will need aid, will need help, will need that aid comes with the aid to violence, aid to corruption, aid to stolen wealth, aid to all kinds of criminality. Like I said, even the criminals, even the bandits, whatever they are using is never produced here. So how do they get it? We just got the Vanguard group telling us that they are in Niger, they are here. Democracy is not about voting and casting votes. Democracy is beyond that. It is the result of that vote cast that Africans are looking for. It is the result and the impact of the leader on the continent and the people. That is what should count, and not just a mere act of voting. We've been voting in Cameroon. We've been voting in Cameroon for how many decades? Look at the issue of Gabon. How many years? 50-something years. And we are still talking about casting of votes. Is it just casting votes for casting's sake? We must cast votes to the extent that those votes count and there is an impact on the immediate community. After all, what's the whole essence of governance if it is not for the people and the common good and welfare of the people? Look at our Constitution, Section 14, where we say
all right, Mr. Cletus.
Security.
So the president also spoke about his economic diplomacy. Mr. Cletus, the president also spoke about his economic diplomacy, saying Nigeria is now ready for business. How impactful is this approach on the economy?
Yes. Let me say this to you. One of the preparatory grounds for economic diplomacy is the security of the country, which is a major, major setback before this president was sworn in. It was a major setback. But you can see clearly that things are coming down sectorally, sectionally, regionally. From the northeast, we had so much in the northwest, especially around the areas between Zamfara and other places. Today, the southeast, just 2 days ago, had another major crisis, which are pockets of things that are happening in a manner as if it is guerrilla warfare. It is not as rampant as we used to have it on a daily basis, bombings, sit at home and all that. So economic diplomacy can only thrive and investors can only be attracted to a peaceful environment. And I think the president has committed to it. 2, the ease of doing business. In other words, policy, fiscal policies that will enhance the investment, enhance investment in a country, in an environment such as our own. You are going to get a lot of investors coming in. But where the environment is hostile, where it takes you 2 years to get a license to do mining, where it gets, of course, don't forget that the last government freed the economy by trying to regionalize and make mining and such other things that were on the exclusive legislative list to go concurrent, such that the ease of doing business, the involvement of the regions, the states in this case, and of course the policy statements from the government, especially the present government in terms of its administrative ease from the regions, from taking away what used to exclusively be for the national to the state. You can now generate light from any state. You can now get into mining in any state with minimal restrictions. So if you have to establish an industry here, you can discover that in the last 3 years, you can use your phone and open and register a company on phone.
Then, how will you rate the president's outing at all of these international events, from ECOWAS to AU, G20, and now United Nations General Assembly?
His shuttle diplomacy, his diplomacy in the last 3 months that he came into office. Don't forget that he was barely 30 days in office when he was elected ECOWAS. That's a vote of confidence. Thereafter, the Niger crisis erupted. See the diplomatic way in which he handled it, and it would have been worse than this, but tension has died, fantastically handled. He moves to India, and now he is in the United Nations. I can assure you that this president has extremely demonstrated capacity. He has taken bold decisions that before today were unthinkable. Look at his fiscal policies, look at his appointments, the service chiefs. He did not back down and is not backing down. I'm aware that some people are complaining about the tilting. Nobody has complained about the quality of people that are in this government.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cletus. So before I run out of time, it's important for me to ask you this question. I mean, the last time you were here, you once accused your party of not always rewarding loyalty by members. Do you still retain this view of the APC leadership?
I still say so with caution, both to the party and to the government. I don't speak just for myself. I'm a party leader across this country, and we have platforms that we interact. The feeling of party members, especially legacy party members, is still very strong that they have about to be used and dumped. That I maintain, and I will also say that it is not late, I'll tell my colleagues, because the boards have not been, the boards for director generals, executive secretaries, board members, governing council of universities have to be restored because they are tenured. That is one of the things that have not been done. So you can't go to the universities because those ones are tenured. You can't tamper with them. But there are over 6,000 boards and parastatals in MDAs that are yet to be occupied. So I want to tell my colleagues that we want to see that we must play our politics, and the party must consciously get to the states and ensure that both the governors, the party in the state, and leaders of all the zones must come together to ensure that legacy party members, those who toiled and won this election, it's not enough. It is irresponsible of a man to leave his wife and children at home, not going to school and very sick, to go and marry new wives. That is not a sign of responsibility. You cannot say that all your children are not doing well, are imbeciles, that you are now looking for extra hands after they have farmed and it is time to harvest.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cletus Obun.
Plant, but they cannot harvest. That is not a good thing to do.
Thank you, Chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, Cletus Obun. Thank you so much for joining us on the program tonight as we discuss the sack of Kano State Governor by the tribunal and other national issues. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thanks for having me, TVC.